Hello everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com with the second video in our Learn How to Use Laravel series. And before we get into the database stuff, I just want to, make sure that our app is working. There's a couple little things we just want to make sure we troubleshoot. Again, I'm using XAMPP, so I have an Apache server running. You don't have to do that. I just do it because it's nice to have the MySQL there running too. Laravel does have its own sort of native server that you can run. So let me go back over here to the Laravel docs. Okay, make sure you know what the command is. Okay, it's right here. Yeah, artisan serve. You can run that, and you can run a server that'll work so for you to visit the website in a particular port. Since I'm using Apache, I don't have to worry about a particular port, so I can just type in localhost. And again, I have it in a particular PHP directory, where I have it in a folder called sites, in a folder called list app, so that's why I did it that way. So generally in that folder, you have a file in your root directory for your project. There's a file called server.php. That could be the entry point to your project. But see, I got this. This means that there's a permissions issue. So I'm going to just fix that real quick. So I have to go into that folder. And I want to change the permissions. So paste. Okay, I need to change. And this is going to be the command you're going to want to do. Okay. And let me go get the exact path of that. So document said. Down here. Here we go. I say PHP sites Laravel 1 list app. Okay, and there's our path. So I'm going to paste that there. And what this command is going to do, so sudo, so that way you can act as a super user. chmon means to change the permissions. Now R is important. That -R means it's recursive. That's what you need to include in the command for it to not just do that folder, but all the documents and subfolders as well. Okay, and then I'm changing the permissions to this. So read, write, access, and that's for everybody. That's what the A is for. So everybody will have read, write, access. Not the safest thing to do if this was like a really important project. You may want to tailor the permissions a little bit more if this was something you were going to do for like a professional production ready project, or go back and change those permissions when you're done with the project. But for now, I will do that. Put in your sudo password, and ta-da. Okay, so now I shouldn't be getting this error anymore. So refresh, and you get this page. So if you got this page, everything is working. That is sort of the default Laravel start page. And just to kind of show you where this page is coming from, okay, let's take a look at that server.php. Okay, essentially what this does, URL coded, require one stir index.php. So essentially it's taking you to the index.php in the public file. That's kind of what's essentially happening here. And because that's essentially your public directory. So if we go inside the index.php in the root file, let's see what that says. Start, define, Laravel start, directory, require once, that's something else, app.php. Request response, send. Got it. Well, essentially what it's going to end up doing, okay, it ends up looking at your routes folder. Okay, I was trying to see where the reference to that folder is in here, but I'm not picking up on it now. But the idea is that eventually it goes inside and looks at your web.php, because it's assuming that that's the route, the root route. Okay, the index.php. So basically that server.php essentially sends you to the root route. And the root route says, hey, we're going to send you to a view of a file that starts with welcome. So then when we go to our views, which are in resources, views. Right there, welcome.blade.php, and I place this file. So this is the file you're seeing on the screen. So just to kind of prove to you that this is the right one, let me change that text. Where is the word Laravel? Here it is. Hey, look, ma. Web deving. So if I save that file, then we go back up here and refresh. Look, ma, I'm web deving. So see, it works. So that is the file. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. So basically, you go to web.php and you can create other routes for other things. So like, I could sit there and create another route like this. Copy, paste, and this route, we'll call this /lookma. Okay, and this is going to take us to a view called lookma. Save. And let's make another view in here. Oh, don't want to undo that. Don't want to move that folder there. It should be over here. Yeah, I need to move this back. No, not in there. I'm going to move it in less tab. There we go. Okay. So I'll make a duplicate of this. We'll call it lookma. And then we'll just change the text again. Lookma, I'm a different route. Okay. So if I did that, so if I went to localhost sites, list app, well, I guess technically here here's what I'm gonna do, just to show you how this works a little bit clearer. I'm actually gonna stop Apache. So let's stop the Apache server, and we're gonna run the native web server. And again, that command was, I think, yeah, PHP artisan serve. So we'll run that over here. PHP artisan serve. There we go. So see, we have a development here on 8,000. So now I should be able to go to localhost 8,000. I should show us the root one. Yep, lookma, I'm web deving. See file, put contents, stream, permission denied. It probably wants me to do the whole IP address. Let me just do that first. Just do it that way. Yep, so there we go. So now if I were to go to 8,000/lookma, the other route, lookma, I'm a different route. Okay, so basically all these routes are always relative to that root. Okay, at least particularly in that web folder. So let me go back to where the routes were. Right over here, particularly to this route one. Now these other ones, they have different prefixes. So I'm pretty sure everything in here starts with API. So basically this would be API/user. And whatnot. So we'll come back to that. But that's where you put your routes. Okay. Now that is that. Now notice that right now in my routes, I'm defining what happens right here in this enclosure. Now later on, some of your routes might get really complicated where you're pulling information from different databases and sending different stuff to the screen and whatnot, or responding in JSON. So you may not want all that detail here. So you may want to create what's called a controller. So in this case, so in Laravel, they actually separate the routing from the controller. So the controller, you can define what the routes do, but you can do that in a separate file. Okay, and then that's going to end up being found over here in app. An app, HTTP, and then here you'll find a folder called controllers. Okay, so here there's a bunch of controllers for authentication. So all the auth routes that come native, that come like out of the box with Laravel, this is defining what those routes do. Okay, so let me see if there's I can find an example of one. API get user. No, none of those are giving me a good example. Okay, so let's make one. Okay, so what we do is we can go back to the command line. Let me see where we are over here. Let me close that tab, open a new tab, so that way it's in the same folder. List stop. Okay, and then we should be able to make a controller. Let me just double check what the command is to create one of those controller files. So that way it just configures it for you, so you don't have to worry about all the configuration. And that should be in the basics, controllers. And that command is, where is it? Should be right here. Okay, PHP artisan make controller, and then we can put in the name of the controller. So I'll go here and say paste, and then say test controller. Now if I go back to my list of controllers, see, there's my new controller. Yay! And then here you can create functions. Okay, so if we can see how that's done with the other controllers. Okay, so they create like a public function like this. Okay. So I could do something like public function test, and then do one of these. And then in the middle of that, we'll copy what happens in our routes. So let me go back to our routes. Where are they? Over here. And I'm going to say I'm going to basically take this piece out. Cut. And then put that in our test controller. Cool. So now that function returns the view to the file, to the view of the file template lookma. Okay, and then in this case, I don't need this function here as a second parameter. Instead of the second parameter, I need to put, I'm pretty sure I have to put in a string, which should be the name of the controller, test controller, and then at the function, which we said I think was test. Yep. So essentially what that's supposed to be saying is saying go look in the test controller and use the test function in the test controller. Let me just make sure that's the right syntax. Show profile. Okay, yep. Photos admin controller at method. Okay, good. Okay, so test controller at test. So I was going to say look in this test controller file and look for the test function, which is right here, and then do what it says as the function of that route. And this makes your route files a little bit more cleaner to read, which is kind of the benefit of controllers, and that way you can have all that logic a little bit more organized. So let's test out, make sure it works. Let's refresh. Controllers, test controller does not exist, does it? See here, app, HTTP, controllers. Test controller. Well, it does exist. Class test controller, public function. Seems to be looking in the right folder. App, HTTP, controllers, test controller. Looks like it didn't pick up. Should have automatically picking up the file extension, but It's not, so let's try that, changing that and see what happens. So if I did controller.php at test, so let's see here. Does that make the difference? Shouldn't. 7 look ma. Because you see here, it's looking in the right place. App HTTP controller. Okay, so we're getting this error. Now, just to kind of explain what this error is saying, is that it's looking for our controller. And again, by default, it's going to look inside this app HTTP controllers folder, which is where I have my controller. So everything looks fine. Okay, the controller name matches. I'm extending controller. Okay, all my curly brackets are closed. Okay, and it's just referring to the view lookma, which we know works because we tried it out just a second ago, back in when we had the full route in the normal web.php. So you can still just define the whole route here if you wanted to, but I want you to just kind of understand what, if you run into this problem yourself on your end, what might some of the solutions possibly be. I did post this question in Stack Overflow, so that way the particular resolution to this one you'll be able to go find out, but just to keep things moving along. Okay, but test controller test. So you see here, test controller does match, and again, long as I don't like, it's not in a subfolder, right? So here it's in the controllers folder, so I don't have to put. But let's say it was in that auth folder, just to keep in mind, then I'd have to do like auth/test controller, but that's not the case. The function is named test, so it's saying, and this is the right syntax. So run the test function in the test controller, which is right there. So syntax wise, this all looks good. The namespace is good. Okay, in the sense that this is the directory is going to be an app HTTP controllers, and then there's test controller. One possible issue, but when I tried it, didn't work, is to see if that maybe because the app folder is lowercase in when Laravel set up the scaffolding here, but this says uppercase, to see if that made a difference. It did not. Based on what I searched online, there was a couple commands that they want you to try out in case you run into the situation. Okay, one is this command, PHP artisan config cache. What it does, it just kind of rebuilds all your references. So you run that, it clears out your cache, which could possibly be causing the issue. And then the other one is composer dump autoload, which kind of rebuilds your autoload. Okay, so we'll run both of those. Let's see if this is still giving me a problem. Yep, still giving me a problem. So for some reason it's just not seeing that test controller, which again possibly could be made because of some syntax error, but I am not seeing a syntax error at the moment. Namespace is fine. I'm not making any reference to any kind of models. I'm not doing it in any kind of nested folder. So all the typical problems that I see when people have this issue based on Stack Overflow are not applying here. So there's something my brain is missing. But theoretically, what should be happening is that when I go to lookma, it'll send it to this test controller over here, which will tell it to go see the view, which will then route it to the view over here, lookma.blade.php, which again, earlier you saw me do that route just normally. Cool. So you know what a controller is. I'm going to leave it at that for now. We'll revisit that once, but just want to make sure that you were clear on sort of like the thought process in troubleshooting that. And cool. So what we're going to do is create our list model. Okay. So what we're going to want to do is do PHP artisan. So artisan is sort of the little thing that's built into Laravel that lets you make stuff. Artisan make, and then I think it's migration. So we need to make a migration. And then we're going to call this list because it's going to be our list item. Not open input file, artisan make. Okay, so I formed that command a little bit odd. So it's actually PHP artisan, then make migration. Okay, and then we'll call it create list. Okay, so there we go. We have our migration file. So now we can go back to our code here. And that's going to be, well, that's the whole thing. Let's close out app. This should be in database. Let's close out all these other folders. Database, migrations, and here we see our migration to create list. And basically the way this reads is when you run your migration, anything that's in this up function is what it's going to add to the database. Anything in the down function is going to take out of the database. Right now, all I want to do is create list. Okay. And again, if you're not sure, you can always just take a look at one of the other ones and kind of see how they did it. Okay, so in this case, this is the default create users, which creates a users table, and then with these fields. Okay. And this is just going to have really one. We'll have the ID, and then we won't have to bother to have timestamps. We'll keep it simple. We're going to have string. Let me just make sure it's string. Yep, string. And then that field is going to be called list item. Okay, so it's basically just the ID and the list item. That's it. Okay, so basically it's going to create a table. They'll have an ID for each item, and each item will be called list item, which will be just the text. Okay, and that's it. Okay, and you can create a schema with anything. You can, again, take a look at some of these other examples to kind of see some of the options available to you and read the documentation. Cool. So now once we're done with that, well, that's full TS. We want to look at Laravel, the database. Here we go. We're going to want to build that migration. Okay, so where's the command to build the migration? Here we go, PHP artisan migrate. So we're going to want to run that. It's going to look in that migration folder, take a look at which migrations it's already run, and run any outstanding migrations. So paste, migrate, and then we see it has a problem. So we're going to look and clean up the problem. Syntax error, unexpected bracket. Where is the unexpected bracket? On line 19. So this is unexpected. Let's make sure. And this parentheses matches with that. I think I need to put a comma here. That's the issue. Let's compare that to the create users. Did they put a comma on their last item? Oh no, they're doing semicolons for each one. Okay, so I need a semicolon here. That is the issue. Thinking in JavaScript. JavaScript object logic. Too much time playing with Mongo and JavaScript. Okay, we're in PHP now, ma. Okay. So, let's see here. Let's run that again. Okay, that time it looks like it's running fine. Cool. And just to double check to make sure that that all did what it was supposed to do, we'll head over to my Actually, I want to keep that up because I'm going to put that in the video description. Okay, localhost. Right now we're running on 8,000. Oh, actually no, not for the PHP my admin. PHP my admin. Oh, that's right, because I'm not running the XAMPP. I do need to run the Apache server to get to that. So I'm gonna run the Apache server. So technically I have two PHP servers running right now. Hopefully they don't confuse each other, but I guess they're on different ports. Localhost PHP my admin. Let that open up. Let me check the database, which is in our list app thing here. Job list. There's our list table. Okay, that was created. Here are our columns, and again, see new ID list item. Cool. So the migration worked, is the point. Okay, so you have access to that database data, so you'll be able to enter database in there. Enter data in there, take data out of there. Now with your Laravel application, because it's all set up and configured. So that's all pretty cool. Okay, anything else I want to talk about before we wrap this video up? Let's see here. I think that's good for the moment. Then we'll play more with routes on the next video. Have a great one. Ciao.